Chapter 1. The Winter Phone Call. North Dakota. The heartland of America, where winters seem endless and the wind scrapes secrets from the prairie. Marilyn Garrison had built her life in the small, tight-knit town of Hawthorne, a place where everyone knew your name and every neighbor had a story. She was a mother, a wife, and the sort of person people trusted. Steady, smart, the pillar of her church choir, the volunteer at every school fundraiser. But on a Friday evening in February, as snow drifted against her kitchen window and the aroma of chicken soup filled the air, everything Marilyn thought she knew began to unravel. The call came just after 7 p.m. Her husband, Rick, had said he'd be late at the hardware store inventory season. Their daughter Emily was upstairs finishing a college application. Their son Josh played video games in the basement. Life was predictable, until Marilyn picked up the phone. A man's voice, flat and unfamiliar. "Mrs. Garrison, I need you to listen. Your husband isn't who you think he is. He's in trouble. If you care about your family, tell no one. Wait for instructions." Then silence. Marilyn stared at the receiver, heart racing. She tried calling Rick. No answer. She walked through the house in a daze, glancing at family photos, suddenly wondering what she didn't know about the man she'd loved for over 2 decades. Emily appeared in the doorway, concern on her face. "Mom, are you okay?" Marilyn forced a smile. "Just a wrong number, honey. Go back to your homework." But as the wind howled outside, Marilyn couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she could never imagine. That night, as she lay awake, her phone buzzed with a text. "If you want to keep your daughter safe, don't talk to the police." The real nightmare was only beginning. Chapter 2. Shadows over Hawthorne. Marilyn barely slept. Every sound outside, the wind whipping through bare branches, the distant crunch of tires on snow, made her heart race. She lay beside Rick, who had finally come home just after midnight, his face tired and closed off. He'd claimed it was a long inventory night and immediately collapsed into bed, barely touching her. But Marilyn's mind replayed the strange call over and over. The next morning, the house was heavy with unspoken questions. Rick made coffee, not meeting her eyes. Emily and Josh bickered over breakfast, unaware of the storm gathering above their heads. Marilyn tried to act normal, but the words from the phone call echoed in her mind. "Your husband isn't who you think he is. Tell no one." After the kids left for school, Marilyn confronted Rick in the kitchen. "Did something happen last night?" Rick looked up, startled. "Inventory ran late. Why?" "There was a strange call. Someone warned me about you. Who would do that?" Rick's expression darkened. "Probably a prank. This town's full of gossips." But Marilyn saw fear, just for a second, flash across his face. Then it was gone. He left for work without another word. Marilyn's hands shook as she tidied up, her thoughts a tangled knot. The call, the text. If it was a prank, why did she feel so watched? Why did Rick seem scared? Marilyn, newly married, stands outside their first rented duplex, watching Rick argue with a man in an old pickup. She doesn't hear the words, but she never forgets Rick's clenched fists or the way he kept glancing over his shoulder. When she asked about it later, Rick brushed her off. Just a mix-up with the hardware supplier, but Marilyn always wondered. Trying to distract herself, Marilyn volunteered for the food drive at the church. Yet even among friends, she felt alone. The small talk sounded forced. Someone mentioned the town's recent spike in thefts and fraud. "Times are tough, you know. Nobody's safe anymore." Another whispered about the new sheriff's big city investigation into Hawthorne's finances. Marilyn's ears burned with every rumor. Was her family being watched for a reason? When she got home, she found a small, unmarked envelope wedged in her front door. Inside was a grainy photo, her daughter Emily, walking to school, bundled against the cold. On the back, written in marker, "Don't make the same mistake he did." Panic clawed at Marilyn's chest. She called Rick, but he didn't answer. She texted Emily, "Let me know the moment you get out of class. Stay with friends." Marilyn's hands shook as she poured herself a glass of water, realizing she couldn't trust anyone, not even her own husband. Across town, Sheriff Teresa Harlan sorted through stacks of financial records in her cramped office. A city transplant, Teresa had quickly realized Hawthorne's friendly smiles hid generations of secrets. Missing money, odd land transfers, and rumors of quiet blackmail all led back to a handful of families. The Garrisons were on every list. She circled Rick's name and underlined Marilyn's. She sipped cold coffee and scrawled a note in the margin. Family pressure point? Check old files. Who's holding the leash? Her deputy, Frank, poked his head in. We got another report. Someone found a threatening note on their porch. That's the third this week. Teresa's jaw tightened. Start a file. These aren't pranks. Someone's trying to send a message. That evening, Rick arrived home tense and withdrawn. He barely ate, retreating to the garage after dinner. Marilyn followed, finding him staring at old boxes lost in thought. Rick, please, I need to know what's going on. He hesitated, voice low. There are things I can't tell you, not now. But it's not just about us. If you love our family, let it go. Don't dig. Tears welled in Marilyn's eyes. I can't protect us from something I don't understand. Rick shook his head. Pain and fear etched deep. It's safer if you don't understand. He closed the door between them, leaving Marilyn alone in the cold garage, clutching the photo of Emily. Later that night, Marilyn's phone buzzed again. A new message. You were warned. Next time, it won't just be a photo. Attached was a live image from outside their house, the red taillights of a car idling in the snow. Marilyn realized the danger was closer than she ever imagined, and someone was watching right now. Chapter 3. Faces in the Snow. Marilyn barely recognized herself as she stared into the bathroom mirror that morning. Her skin looked drawn, eyes rimmed red from another sleepless night. Downstairs, Rick and the kids were moving through breakfast on autopilot. Josh muttered about a test, Emily scrolled on her phone, Rick's answers clipped and distracted. Marilyn realized, whatever she did or said now, the danger had already infected every corner of their lives. She decided to walk Emily to school, masking her anxiety with forced cheerfulness. The town of Hawthorne was small enough that everyone noticed changes in routine. As they passed the bakery, old Mrs. Larkin waved. Cold morning for a stroll, Marilyn. Gotta get my steps in, Marilyn called back, feigning normalcy. Emily gave her a sidelong look, but said nothing. The wind was sharp, swirling ice across empty sidewalks. Marilyn's eyes darted to every passing car, every stranger's face. She caught a glimpse of a gray sedan idling at the corner, its windows tinted. She felt the weight of someone watching, but when she looked again, the car was gone. At the school gates, Marilyn hugged Emily tightly. Be careful, sweetheart. Call me after class, please. Emily frowned. Mom, are you okay? Just humor me. Marilyn lingered as the students streamed in, then turned for home, nerves stretched thin. 8 years earlier, Rick sat alone in his hardware store after hours. A stranger entered, a man in an old army jacket, face pockmarked and unsmiling. He handed Rick a manila envelope. You owe more than you think, the man said. This time, don't make me come back. Rick opened the envelope. Photos, bank slips, and a single Polaroid of a crying child he didn't recognize. Rick's hands shook. I did what you asked. The man shrugged. Then do more. That night, Rick came home pale and silent. Marilyn asked if he was sick. He just nodded and said, bad day at work. At home, Marilyn could no longer wait for answers. She opened Rick's laptop while he was at work, searching his email, bank records, anything. Most accounts were clean, but one email, sent from a burner address, caught her eye. From North Prairie Trust at protonmail.com, subject, final warning. You know the terms, no more delays, one mistake, and your family pays first. Marilyn's breath caught. The message was less than a week old. Her phone buzzed, a call from an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Garrison? The same flat voice as before. You're not listening. If you talk to anyone, your daughter won't come home from school. The line went dead. Terrified, Marilyn called Emily, but she didn't answer. Heart pounding, she called the school. Emily Garrison? I need to make sure she's in class. After a long minute, the secretary confirmed. She's here, just stepped into chemistry. Everything okay, Mrs. Garrison? Marilyn forced a laugh. Just a worried mom, thank you. She sat down, shaking. For the first time, she understood the trap. She was being watched, every move anticipated. Sheriff Teresa Harlan reviewed new evidence with her deputy Frank. This pattern, threats, photos, financial pressure, it matches 3 other cases I found in the state database. Families ruined, then leaving town suddenly. Frank frowned. Same players? Always a shell company, North Prairie Trust, or similar. Always a debt that never gets paid. Teresa's gut twisted. Whoever's doing this knows Hawthorne inside out. We need to warn these families, but quietly. She stared at the names. Garrison, Marsh, Elliott. She picked up the phone. Rick returned home early, his face ashen. Marilyn couldn't contain herself. Who is threatening us, Rick? What have you done? He closed his eyes, slumping against the counter. I made mistakes. Years ago, I borrowed from the wrong people. I thought I'd paid them off, but they keep coming back. Now they're using you, Emily, Josh, everyone I love, as leverage. I'm so sorry. Tears streamed down Marilyn's face. Why didn't you tell me? Rick's voice was hoarse. I wanted to protect you. I thought I could fix it alone. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Marilyn froze. Through the frosted glass, she saw a police badge. Sheriff Harlan stood on the porch, face serious. Mrs. Garrison, can I speak to you and your husband? Privately, please. There's been a development. You may be in danger. As they let her in, a car idled across the street, its windows reflecting only the white, empty sky. Inside, someone watched, phone in hand, ready to send the next message. Marilyn realized Hawthorne's secrets were much deeper than she'd ever imagined, and her family was only the latest to pay the price. Chapter 4. The Box Beneath the Floorboards. Sheriff Teresa Harlan's boots squeaked on the Garrison family's kitchen tile as she stepped inside, snow swirling in the open doorway. Marilyn stood frozen near the sink. Rick looked as if he might collapse. The children's voices floated faintly from upstairs, Emily finishing her homework, Josh listening to music, both still blissfully unaware. Teresa flashed her badge. This won't take long, but I need you both to be honest. I believe someone's targeting your family, and it's not random. Rick exchanged a haunted glance with Marilyn. She nodded slightly, giving him permission. Harlan produced a slim folder. Have either of you seen anything like this? Inside was a photo of another Hawthorne family, the Marshes, sitting together at a picnic, faces circled in red marker, an ominous scrawl across the bottom, pay or pay up. Marilyn gasped. We got something like that, but with our daughter. Teresa's jaw tightened. You're not the first. Last year, the Marshes left town overnight. Before that, the Elliots lost their home in a suspicious fire. Someone's pushing families to the edge, ruin, blackmail, threats. And they're getting bolder. Rick rubbed his temples. It's my fault. Years ago, I borrowed money, just a little, to save the store. I paid it back, but they wanted more. They always want more. Teresa's eyes softened, but only slightly. That's how it works. They find the weak spot, then squeeze, but we're building a case, and you might have something they need. She looked at Marilyn. Was there anything unusual in your home? Documents, packages, things out of place? Marilyn hesitated, recalling a strange draft in the laundry room. There's a loose board under the washing machine. Always thought it was nothing. Teresa's eyes sharpened. Let's check. Together, they squeezed into the cramped laundry room. Marilyn pried up the warped floorboard. Beneath was a metal box, rusted but intact. Inside, bundles of old receipts, faded banknotes, a battered ledger, and at the bottom a thick envelope sealed with red wax. Teresa examined the contents. These are payoff records, names, amounts, dates. This ledger, it's not just your family, it's a network, and this. She broke the seal on the envelope and slid out a stack of photographs. These are surveillance shots, not just of you, but of half the families in Hawthorne. Marilyn shivered. How long has this been going on? Teresa flipped through the pages. Some of these photos are decades old. This is bigger than just you or Rick. Someone's been running this operation a long time. Marilyn, age 12, sits at the kitchen table watching her mother count cash and seal it in an envelope. Why do we have to pay them, Mama? Her mother's hands tremble. Because some secrets never stay buried, honey. We do what we must to keep the family safe. Back in the present, Marilyn stared at her hands, suddenly understanding that her family's trouble began long before Rick's loan. This was generational, a cycle passed down like an heirloom nobody wanted. At school, Emily's day felt off-kilter. Her best friend Rachel asked why her mom seemed so tense that morning. Emily shrugged. I think my dad's just stressed. Work's been hard. But she kept glancing out the classroom window, haunted by the image of that gray sedan. After school, she walked home in a group, hyper-aware of every car that passed. On the front steps, she found a small package, no return address, just her name, printed in block letters. Heart-pounding, Emily brought it inside and opened it on the kitchen counter. Inside, a single silver necklace, just like the one her grandmother used to wear, and a note, some things should stay in the past. Emily ran upstairs, locking her door behind her, tears pricking her eyes. Sheriff Harlan's phone buzzed, her deputy Frank calling from the station. We've got something. Surveillance camera caught a guy dumping a package on the garrison porch 20 minutes ago. Could be our suspect. Teresa nodded. Send me the footage, and get extra patrols on this block. No one comes or goes without us knowing. Rick slumped into a chair. What now? Teresa gave him a long look. Now you help us. Everything you remember. Names, dates, threats. If you keep holding back, your family isn't safe. Marilyn squeezed Rick's hand. We do this together. No more secrets. As night fell, Marilyn found herself staring at the metal box again. The ledger's faded pages hinted at dozens of names. Some she knew, some she didn't. She realized the truth. Hawthorne's web of blackmail and shame had claimed her family before she was even born. But now, for the first time, someone was fighting back. As Marilyn locked up for the night, her phone vibrated. A new message, no number attached. You're making a mistake. Tomorrow, everyone pays. And, attached, a photo of Emily's bedroom window, taken just moments earlier, in the dark. Marilyn stared out into the snow, knowing the danger was now watching from just outside her door. Chapter 5. The Threat Grows, Children in Danger. Marilyn barely slept, her mind replaying the image from the anonymous message, a photo of Emily's window, taken just hours ago from somewhere in the night. She checked the locks twice before collapsing into bed, only to lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering which neighbor might be watching them right now. The small-town comfort she'd always loved about Hawthorne now felt like a trap. Too many eyes, too many secrets, and no way to know who to trust. In the morning, she found Emily sitting at the kitchen table, turning the silver necklace over and over in trembling fingers. Marilyn tried to steady her voice. Who gave you that? Emily shook her head, eyes wide with fear. It was on the porch. There was a note. Is something happening, Mom? Marilyn struggled for a gentle answer, but honesty finally won out. Someone's trying to scare us, but we're going to get through this. No more secrets, Emily. Josh shuffled in, headphones around his neck. Why's everybody acting so weird? Rick came in, unshaven and haggard, and poured coffee with shaking hands. Because, he said quietly, we're in some trouble, and we all need to be careful. Emily's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then froze. Her face went pale. She turned the screen to Marilyn, a text from an unknown number. Pretty necklace. Maybe your mother wants it back. For a moment, Marilyn's world stopped. The necklace had belonged to her own mother, buried with her 15 years ago. How did someone have it now? She glanced at Rick, whose eyes widened in shock and guilt. 15 years earlier, Marilyn, newly pregnant, sat beside her dying mother in a hospital room. Her mother squeezed her hand. Honey, there are things you can't ever repay. Don't dig where the ground is already rotten. Protect your children first. She pressed a cold silver chain into Marilyn's palm. If you ever see this again, it means the past has come for you. Promise me, you'll protect the children whatever it takes. Marilyn had wept, believing her mother was delirious. Now those words echoed like a prophecy. By noon, word had spread through Hawthorne. Small towns are petri dishes for rumors. Half the church ladies knew something bad was happening at the Garrison house. A neighbor accidentally brought over muffins, angling for gossip. Marilyn managed a tight smile and deflected her questions. Sheriff Harlan parked her cruiser across the street. She entered the house with a briefcase and a grave face. We've ID'd the man from your porch, Rick. Ex-con John Raleigh. Connections to blackmail, interstate fraud, even arson. He's been operating out of Minot, North Dakota. And there's more. He was seen leaving the Marsh house the night they disappeared. Rick's hands clenched. I never wanted this for my family. Teresa nodded. Nobody does, but now you have to help me stop him. Emily and Josh, pale and silent, listened from the stairs. Marilyn felt the wall between generations crumbling. Her own childhood nightmares becoming her children's reality. Teresa spread out the evidence. This necklace, the threats, the photos, it's a signature. Raleigh's style is to unearth old scandals and use them to blackmail families with the most to lose. That's why he targeted you, Rick. That's why he's still here. Josh spoke for the first time. Are we gonna die? Marilyn knelt and hugged both children. No, I promise, we are not alone. That afternoon, Teresa visited the town council. The mayor, Mr. Prescott, met her in his wood-paneled office, framed diplomas crowding the wall. Teresa, you're stirring up a lot of trouble, he said, voice tight. Hawthorne doesn't need this kind of attention. Teresa bristled. With respect, Mayor, families are being threatened. I need resources, backup from state police, access to older town records. This goes deeper than a few late payments, and you know it. Prescott's eyes narrowed. Sometimes, for the good of the community, it's better to let sleeping dogs lie. Some families have paid enough already. Teresa stared him down. And how many more will pay, Mayor? He didn't answer. She left, anger simmering. While the children did their homework at the dining table, Marilyn returned to the hidden box. She dug deeper, finding a second, smaller envelope. Inside, her mother's handwriting. To Marilyn, if you are reading this, then the web has caught you too. I'm sorry. The name you need is Esther Yates. She knows how it began, and maybe how it ends. The name meant nothing to Marilyn, at first. But a faded photo was tucked inside, a much younger version of her mother, standing with two other women in front of a snow-dusted house. Written on the back, Esther, Frances, and May, winter 1976. Suddenly, Marilyn remembered. Esther Yates had lived on the outskirts of town, a woman with a reputation for knowing everyone's business. She'd disappeared years ago after a fire destroyed her farmhouse. That night, Marilyn stared at the photo, her mother's warning echoing in her ears. Her phone buzzed. You want answers? Go to where it all burned down, but come alone. Attached was a map pin, an address on the old Yates property, now just a shell in the winter fields. Marilyn knew the time for waiting was over. If she wanted to break the cycle, she had to face the ghosts in Hawthorne's past herself. Chapter 6, Secrets Never Sleep. The wind howled across the empty fields as Marilyn parked at the edge of the old Yates property, the car's headlights illuminating nothing but the skeleton of what had once been a farmhouse. The moon cast long shadows across collapsed timbers and overgrown weeds poking through the snow. Marilyn stepped out, her boots crunching in the icy crust, heart pounding at every distant noise. She hesitated at the ruined porch, glancing back at her phone. The text still glowed on the screen, urging her forward. You want answers? Go to where it all burned down, but come alone. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back. But the need to break the cycle, to save her family, was stronger than fear. She found the courage to cross the broken threshold. Inside, the stench of old fire and rotting wood hit her. Moonlight spilled through the holes in the roof, outlining ruined furniture, ghostly echoes of lives destroyed long ago. In the parlor, she found black scorch marks on the floor, and in one corner, a pile of melted glass and metal, the remains of a jewelry box, perhaps. Marilyn shuddered, thinking of her mother's warnings. Suddenly, footsteps crunched outside. She froze, heart hammering, but saw only the shadow of a fox dart past the window. Still, she felt eyes on her, always. Lately, she felt watched. She moved deeper into the ruins, following a path of footprints in the snow, fresh, not her own. In what had been the kitchen, she found an envelope tacked to the wall. On it, in blocky handwriting, Marilyn. Hands trembling, she opened it. Inside, a single Polaroid photo, her mother, much younger, standing beside two women in the same room, long before the fire. There was a second note. You're not the first. Esther kept the real records. Marilyn's mind raced. Esther Yates had vanished after the fire, but rumor said she'd kept a ledger of everyone in town who'd ever paid or been paid off. If Marilyn could find that ledger, she could prove who was really behind the blackmail and end the threats for good. Suddenly, the boards creaked above her. Marilyn spun around. A figure, tall, hooded, stood in the ruined doorway, backlit by moonlight. She recognized the outline. Not Raleigh, not anyone she knew, but unmistakably female. Posture regal despite the rags. "Esther?" Marilyn whispered. The woman didn't answer, only pointed to the collapsed staircase. Marilyn's knees shook, but she followed the silent gesture. At the bottom of the stairs, hidden beneath scorched floorboards, she found a fireproof box, its surface covered in ash. Inside, a thick leather-bound book, brittle with age. The woman was gone. Marilyn's flashlight beam darted through the shadows. No one, just the empty house and the wind. 12-year-old Esther Yates, standing in this same kitchen with Frances and May, Marilyn's mother, watched their fathers sign a pact in blood. For the good of the town, no one must know. But secrets never sleep. Even then, Esther saw the fear in their eyes, a debt owed, a truth buried. Marilyn raced home, the book clutched to her chest. At her kitchen table, she and Rick pored over page after page, decades of loans, payments, threats, names of townsfolk, even leaders, all tied to the same shadow network, and always the initials PP, someone at the very top, anonymous, pulling strings for generations. A knock at the door broke their focus. It was Sheriff Harlan, face grave. "I just got word from Minot. Raleigh was found dead in a motel room. And you need to see this." She handed Marilyn a slip of paper. "There is no escape. Family pays for family. If you speak, you bury your own." Teresa's voice was low. "I think someone on the town council is working with the blackmailers. That's why so many cases go unsolved." Rick's hands shook. "How do we fight that?" Teresa looked at the ledger, hope and fear battling in her eyes. "We start by exposing the truth. Even if it's ugly, even if it's dangerous." While Marilyn and Rick pored over secrets, Emily sat in her room, staring at her phone. Another text flashed on the screen. "Do you know what your mother is doing tonight?" Attached was a blurry photo of Marilyn's car outside the Yates ruins. Emily's hands shook. She called her mom, but it went straight to voicemail. Then, another text. "If you want your family safe, convince her to stay quiet." Emily stared at the screen, paralyzed by fear, knowing now that she too was a pawn in a much older, darker game. As the family gathered in the kitchen, the front window shattered. A brick landed on the floor. Around it, shards of glass and a note. "Next time, it won't be a warning." And outside, in the snowy street, the red taillights of a car faded into the night. Chapter 7. The Web Tightens. Morning brought little relief. Marilyn swept up broken glass in the pale light, hands trembling with every scrape. Rick boarded up the shattered window in silence, jaw set. Face older than the day before. Emily and Josh stayed close, both unnaturally quiet. Too old now for comfort, too frightened for rebellion. Sheriff Harlan returned before breakfast, flanked by her deputy Frank. She glanced at the boarded window, then at the family gathered nervously in the living room. "This isn't just about you anymore," Teresa said quietly. "Whoever is behind this has eyes everywhere, and they're running out of patience." She gestured to the old ledger, its pages marked and tattered. "There's enough here to bring down half the town's leaders, but if we go public without proof of who's at the top, people will get hurt, maybe worse." Rick rubbed his eyes. "Then what do we do?" Harlan's voice was firm. "We set a trap, but you need to act normal. Go to work, school, keep up appearances. I'll keep watch. Tonight, I'll bring in 2 state troopers to protect the house. But if anyone approaches you, call me immediately." As Teresa spoke, Marilyn's phone buzzed with another message. "Last warning. The past belongs to the dead. Let it rest, or we bury the future." Marilyn showed Harlan the screen. The sheriff's face hardened. "He's getting desperate. Desperate men make mistakes." In 1976, a group of Hawthorne's founding families gathered by lamplight. The patriarchs, Esther's father, Marilyn's grandfather, and Mayor Prescott's father, sealed a pact. In exchange for silence about a crime decades old, each family promised loyalty and payment. It was meant to be a temporary solution, but became the town's true law. Over the years, debt replaced justice, and power replaced truth. Esther Yates, still a child, overheard everything, learning early how secrets rot in the dark. Sheriff Harlan met with the state police that afternoon, reviewing evidence from the ledger. One trooper, a man named Paulson, kept glancing at his phone, distracted. Teresa's instincts prickled. "Paulson, can you pull the Yates property surveillance from last night?" He hesitated. Sure, Sheriff. I'll get right on it." Later, when Teresa checked the database herself, the footage was missing. Only a single frame remained, Marilyn's car at the ruins, time-stamped but blurred. Teresa called her deputy aside. "Frank, I don't trust Paulson. Quietly check his background and connections to Mayor Prescott." Frank nodded. "You think Prescott's working with the blackmailers? I think he's protecting someone, or being protected." That evening, Rick received a call at the hardware store. The line crackled with static, but the message was clear. "Tonight, by midnight, bring the ledger to the old train yard outside town. No police, or the girl gets hurt." Rick staggered into the break room, hands shaking. He called Marilyn. "They want the book. Tonight, alone." Marilyn felt numb. "We can't just hand it over. That book could free every family here." Rick's voice broke. "If it means Emily's safe, I'll do whatever they want." Marilyn gripped the phone. "We'll find another way. I'm not letting you face this alone." Emily overheard the call. Fear warred with anger inside her, anger at her parents' secrets, at her own helplessness. She messaged her friend, Rachel. "If anything happens to me, tell Sheriff Harlan. My mom has a ledger. It's all in there." Rachel responded instantly. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Emily hesitated, then shared her location. "I'm not sure, but if I disappear, please don't let them win." Arecia, now suspicious of her own team, drove to the Garrison house with Frank, parking in the shadows. "Don't answer the door unless it's me," she told Marilyn through the glass. She double-checked her gun, then called the state police HQ, demanding a list of every officer on duty and their prior connections to Hawthorne. The dispatcher paused, then said quietly, "Be careful, Sheriff. Some of these names go back a long way." Teresa's blood ran cold. "Frank, get to the train yard. Keep out of sight. If anyone but Rick shows up, call for backup." Frank disappeared into the night, the snow swirling around him. 10 years ago, a young woman, later identified as Esther, set fire to her own home, destroying years of evidence. In the aftermath, she vanished. Some whispered she had finally broken free. Others said she was silenced for knowing too much. As midnight neared, Rick walked alone toward the train yard, the ledger heavy in his coat. In the darkness, a car idled, headlights off, a figure waiting inside. At home, Marilyn huddled by the phone. Sheriff Harlan and Emily beside her, every nerve taut. Suddenly, the power flickered and died. In the blackness, a new message arrived. "One last chance. Choose your secrets or your daughter." And outside, footsteps crunched in the snow, coming closer to the door. Chapter 8. The Breaking Point. The power outage seemed to freeze time inside the Garrison house. Marilyn gripped Emily's trembling hand in the darkness, counting every shallow breath. The kitchen clock ticked, loud and slow, marking the seconds as the footsteps outside grew closer. Sheriff Harlan moved to the door, pistol drawn, back pressed to the wall. Emily whimpered and Josh huddled behind his mother, eyes wide, a fist hammered on the door. "Rick Garrison, you have something that belongs to us. Open up, now." Teresa signaled for silence, mouthing, "Don't move." The footsteps retreated, then circled the house. Through a crack in the boarded window, Marilyn saw the shadowy shape of a man, broad-shouldered, bundled in a parka, moving with deliberate menace. Her phone buzzed again, an incoming message despite the outage. "One last chance, the book for the girl, choose now." At the train yard, Rick waited in the biting wind, the ledger pressed against his chest, beneath his coat. Frank, the deputy, watched from a distance, radio ready, while keeping hidden behind a rusted boxcar. A black SUV rolled up, headlights off, the window lowered, and a man's silhouette appeared. "Give me the book, Rick, or your family pays." Rick's hands shook. He wanted to hand it over, to end this nightmare, but he remembered Marilyn's face, the pain of every secret, and knew if he surrendered the book, the cycle would never end. Back at the house, the pounding started again, this time on the back door. The intruder was trying every entrance. Marilyn whispered, "We have to hide." Teresa shook her head. "No, we make them think we're gone. Emily, Josh, go upstairs, closet silent. Marilyn, stay with me." Emily's face was streaked with tears. "I'm scared." "So am I," Marilyn admitted, pulling her close. Outside, headlights swept the street as a police cruiser arrived. Frank's backup, 2 state troopers. The SUV at the train yard saw the lights and suddenly peeled away, tires spinning in the snow. The figure at the garrison's door cursed and ran, disappearing into the night just as the troopers pounded up the porch. Teresa let them in, flashing her badge. "Secure the perimeter. We have reason to believe the suspect is armed." Their Frank radioed in from the train yard. "Suspect fleeing eastbound in a black SUV. Rick's safe, I'm in pursuit." Relief mixed with dread. They had survived another night, but the threat was not gone. 1976. In the Yates kitchen, the original pact was about to fracture. Esther's father, unable to bear the guilt, tried to break away. The others turned on him, warning, "You talk, your family pays." Esther hid, listening to the message that would define her life, and generations after, with the troopers now guarding the house, Marilyn finally allowed herself to breathe. Sheriff Harlan sat at the table, eyes on the ledger. "This book can bring them down, but it's not enough. We need direct testimony, living witnesses, someone who can link the mayor and the police to the blackmailers. Are you willing to testify, Rick?" Rick nodded, his voice a hoarse whisper. "If it means keeping my family safe, I'll do it." Emily, clutching her phone, spoke up. "I told Rachel everything. If something happens to me, she'll go to the sheriff." Harlan managed a small smile. "You did the right thing." But a cold voice cut through the calm. "You're not done yet." Mayor Prescott stood in the doorway, flanked by Paulson, the corrupt trooper. Prescott's face was blank, but his eyes glittered with fear and calculation. "I suggest you hand over that book, Sheriff," Prescott said, "for everyone's sake." Teresa stood, gun raised. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction, and extortion." Paulson reached for his holster. The room erupted in chaos. Marilyn screamed, Rick shielded Emily, and Harlan tackled Prescott to the ground, the ledger spilling across the floor. Frank burst in, gun drawn. "Drop it, Paulson." A tense standoff. For a moment, it seemed the town's entire history was balanced on a razor's edge. At that moment, across town, the old Yates property went up in flames, a deliberate fire meant to destroy any remaining evidence. Neighbors gathered in the snow, watching the orange glow. Among them, an older woman in a gray scarf, Esther Yates herself, turned and vanished into the night. Aftermath. Who pays? By dawn, Prescott and Paulson were in custody, but the sheriff's office buzzed with tension. The mayor's allies protested, calling the arrests political. Some townsfolk claimed Marilyn's family had brought trouble by digging up the past. Emily received a message from a new number. "This is not over. Another will rise. You will never be safe." Marilyn stared out the kitchen window at the police tape and reporters gathering on her lawn, knowing that safety for her family or the town might never be more than an illusion. As the sun rose, the phone rang again, this time a woman's voice. "You think you won? It's only just begun. Hawthorne keeps its secrets." The line went dead. Marilyn knew the cycle was broken, but the battle for the soul of the town had only started. Chapter 9. Blind Spots. For the first time in weeks, the garrison home was filled with daylight, but it felt like a spotlight. The yard was ringed with yellow police tape and flashing blue lights. Reporters clustered on the sidewalk, shoving microphones toward anyone who dared leave the house. Strangers slowed their cars, gawking. In a town where nothing ever happened, now everything was happening to the garrisons. Inside, Marilyn watched the morning news. Mayor Prescott, local hero, under arrest in a shocking corruption probe. Is Hawthorne hiding even darker secrets? The anchors' voices were syrupy with manufactured concern. Rick sipped coffee, hands shaking. Emily sat beside him, clutching her phone, waiting for the next threat. Josh refused to leave his room. The police had offered to relocate the family, but Marilyn refused. "We are not running," she told Teresa. "If we leave, they win." Sheriff Harlan understood, but her face was tight with worry. "The investigation's not over. Prescott and Paulson are just the surface. Raleigh's death cut off one link, but someone else is pulling strings, and now the whole town is watching." In the late 1980s, a much younger Marilyn sat at a church potluck. listening as her mother warned, "In Hawthorne, the first person to tell the truth is always the first to pay. Don't ever be the first." Even as a child, Marilyn hated that lesson, but now she saw it play out again and again. Every whistleblower, every honest family, driven out or destroyed by gossip and fear. Reporters dug into old scandals, stories about Rick's debts and Marilyn's mother's mysterious past filled social media. Some neighbors sent casseroles and cards, others left nasty notes. Emily's friends stopped texting. Josh found his school locker vandalized, rat family painted in red marker. That night, as Marilyn prepared dinner, her phone rang. The voice on the other end was soft, female, unfamiliar. "You think you've ended it, but you haven't. This town always protects its own. The real power doesn't live in the mayor's office. It lives in the families who never get their names in the paper. Ask your mother's old friend Frances. She knows who made the rules." Before Marilyn could answer, the line went dead. She searched through the old photo again, the one from 1976, her mother with Frances and Esther Yates. Frances had moved away decades ago, but Marilyn remembered a return address on a Christmas card. She decided to call. At the station, Teresa stared at a wall of evidence, ledgers, photos, threats, but too many connections led nowhere. Every time she pushed for state help, the paperwork vanished or was delayed. One of her trusted deputies abruptly requested a transfer. She called a friend in the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. "Someone's sabotaging us from inside. If I disappear, tell the press everything. Don't let this die in Hawthorne." That evening, Emily broke down, sobbing at the kitchen table. "I can't take this, Mom. My friends all hate me. They think we ruined everything." Marilyn hugged her. "You didn't ruin anything, honey. The people who broke this town are the ones who should be ashamed." But the words rang hollow. Marilyn felt the isolation closing in, the sense that even victory was just another prison. Rick tried to lighten the mood, offering to take the family for ice cream, just as they did when the kids were small. They drove to the edge of town, police car trailing behind. The ice cream parlor was empty, the girl at the counter too nervous to meet their eyes. As they ate in silence, a familiar face entered. Frances, her mother's old friend, older and grayer but with the same sharp eyes. "I heard you've been looking for me, Marilyn." Marilyn almost choked. "Frances, they said you moved away." Frances smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. No one really leaves Hawthorne, not if they know what's good for them. They sat at a back table, voices low. Frances confessed, "Your mother tried to end it once too. Esther gathered all the families, wanted to burn the records, break the pact. But not everyone wanted out. Some wanted to keep the power. Your grandfather, he was the one who wrote the first ledger. Prescott was just a boy, but he watched everything. He learned how to keep people in line." Marilyn shivered. "So it never ends." Frances shrugged. "Not until someone is willing to lose everything for the truth, and even then, someone always steps in to take their place." Before Marilyn could answer, Frances pressed a note into her hand. "If you want real change, you have to make it public. Everything, every name. Only then will the town have a chance." Back at home, Emily checked her messages. Another unknown number. "You're not safe. Tell your mother to stop. Final warning." She ran to her mom, shaking. Marilyn read the message and stared at the note from Frances. For the first time, she realized what she had to do, no matter the consequences. That night, Marilyn typed out her story, scanned every page of the ledger, and sent the whole package to every news outlet in the state. She pressed send with trembling hands, knowing she had just lit a fuse no one could put out. In the distance, sirens wailed. Somewhere, another secret slipped into the light. Chapter 10. The Edge of Forgiveness. Dawn broke cold and bright over Hawthorne. The air felt brittle, as if the whole town might shatter with one more secret. At the Garrison house, Marilyn sat by the kitchen window, clutching a mug of coffee gone cold. She watched police cars idling in the street, reporters setting up tripods on the lawn, and neighbors peering out from behind their curtains. The world hadn't ended, but nothing would ever be the same. The email she had sent, her story and the scanned ledger, had already gone viral. Local news had seized on it, then state and even national outlets. The small town of Hawthorne. Decades of blackmail, betrayal, and revenge. Commentators debated on TV. Who was the real villain? Was Marilyn a hero, or just another pawn in the game? The family endured a gauntlet of interviews, police statements, and internet hate. Support poured in from survivors in other towns, but so did threats and accusations. Rick was fired from the hardware store. Emily and Josh both faced classmates who called them traitors and freaks. At night, Marilyn barely slept. Anonymous texts and calls kept coming. Snitch. You'll regret this. You ruined Hawthorne. But others arrived too. Thank you. Now we're not alone. My family lived with the same fear for years. Sheriff Harlan was promoted, then quietly transferred out of town. The official story? Political reasons. She hugged Marilyn before leaving, whispering, "You did the right thing, even if it doesn't feel that way now. Don't let them make you small." As a child, Marilyn once heard her mother praying late at night, words trembling. "God, let my daughter be brave enough to do what I couldn't. Let her be the one who breaks the silence." Back then, Marilyn hadn't understood. Now, she felt the burden of being the one who finally did. The cost of truth. A city council election was called early. The old guard, stunned by the scandal, tried to hold on to their seats. Prescott's name vanished from ballots. Paulson's face appeared on wanted posters as new charges emerged. Esther Yates, it was rumored, had finally fled for good. Some said to Canada, others that she had simply disappeared back into the plains. The town was divided. Some called for reconciliation, others for vengeance. Truth and forgiveness town hall meetings filled the school gym, with people shouting, weeping, begging for closure or at least someone to blame. For the Garrison family, the days blurred together. Emily and Josh grew quieter, more wary, but also more resilient. Rick, weighed down by guilt, took a job repairing roofs in a neighboring county, unwilling to meet the eyes of men he'd once called friends. Marilyn walked through Hawthorne in daylight now, head high. Some people crossed the street to avoid her. Others nodded or smiled, silent gratitude in their eyes. Late one evening, Marilyn received a package, no return address. Inside, a single silver necklace, the same one her mother gave her, and a note in careful handwriting. "You did it, but beware. Every truth has its price." She closed her fist around the necklace and wept, not from fear, but from exhaustion and relief. The edge of forgiveness. On the first day of spring, Marilyn stood in front of the old church, now crowded with townsfolk. She was asked to speak, not as a victim, but as a witness. She looked out over the crowd, faces marked by pain, anger, hope, and uncertainty. "I'm not here to blame," Marilyn began, voice steady. "We all lost something in this. But we have a choice. Keep living in fear and shame, or learn to tell the truth, even when it hurts. My mother once told me, the only way out of the darkness is to name it. We have to forgive ourselves and each other, even when we can't forget." There was a long silence. Some wept openly, others looked away. A few applauded. Marilyn finished quietly. "No more secrets. Not for me, not for my children. I hope that's enough." She stepped down, feeling the heaviness begin to lift, not all at once, but slowly, one breath at a time. That night, as she tucked Emily and Josh into bed, Marilyn's phone lit up with one last message. "There will always be another secret, but you showed us how to fight." Marilyn smiled, whispered goodnight to her children, and closed her eyes, knowing the future would never be simple, but at last it belonged to them.